I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org, call 313-388-9799, or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, and we have a sextet of people joining us for this week's review of what's been happening in the news. We've got host of Detroit in Black and White, Adolph Mongo. We have Michigan pollster Ed Sarpolus, attorney, and now with more light shed on him, Bill Seikaly. We have labor and community activist Barb Ingalls. And of course, we have co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. Ooh, where to start? Well, it wouldn't be the week that was if we didn't start with something Trump. And it seems as though the Trump team is seeking an indefinite postponement of the case that involves the Mar-a-Lago documents and the alleged absconding of them and hiding them from the authorities. Judge Eileen Cannon, a Trump appointee, who can probably remind you of when Fredo Corleone in Godfather 2 says he belongs to Roth. Might be some similarities to this. Is hoping, or maybe I should say the Trump team is hoping that she will in fact comply, but it seems as though Special Counsel Jack Smith is looking for an earlier date of maybe December 11th for jury selection. Where do you see this case going? Who's going to get their wish? And is this going to mean an early Christmas for somebody?
Bill Seikaly. Our
well,
attorney.
you know, I looked at some of the briefs yesterday. The arguments here are simply amazing to me. Let me read you one quote. There is simply no question. This is from the Trump's lawyers in their pleadings to the court. There is simply no question any trial of this action during the pendency of the presidential election will impact both the outcome of that election and, importantly, the ability of the defendants to obtain a fair trial. Now, let me see. If I go out and commit a murder, then declare my candidacy for presidency, you can't try me because it might affect the outcome? This proposition is simply ridiculous. It turns the Constitution upside down on its head. To answer Saeed's question, because I think it was the right one, I don't think anybody's going to get everything they're asking for here. I think that even this judge, who has demonstrated an allegiance to Trump that is kind of overwhelming for a federal judge, is not likely to buy this "you can't try me before the election" argument. But I also don't think it's going to happen as fast as the government wants it.
Well, you know, Shakespeare was right. Kill all the lawyers. Because
but Adolph, you and I don't disagree on much, but I want you to remember the context in which Shakespeare wrote that. I think it was, I can't remember the character, it was the baker. He said that because he wanted to figure out a way to bring down society.
And this is what they do. This is what they're doing.
Well, the lawyers aren't bringing down society. Look, I mean, look, Trump can't find lawyers who will continue to represent him. He simply can't find them.
He's somebody. He got somebody. He got what is this? Our cousin Vinny.
I would have thought the better line was pox on both their houses. I mean, if you want to be repping Shakespeare, Allan.
I mean, first of all, I it's 60 days. The DOJ generally has a policy of not indicting or taking legal action 60 days before an election. This is way before the 60 days. I mean, we had, in 2008, there was Senator Ted Stevens from Alaska who was running for re-election. And the trial, I think he was convicted in October, right before the election. The trial did not stop because he was running for re-election.
Right.
So there's no legal precedent for delaying because Trump decided to run for president. So
didn't they throw that conviction out, Allan?
Yeah, they did. So I think he lost the election probably as a result of that. But the conviction was thrown out. But there's no precedent for not charging the guy. I mean, here the elections, what is it, a year? It's quite a ways off, almost a year and a half off. It's a long time. You can't just put a shield and say, "Don't touch me for the next year and a half. I'm busy. I can't deal with you guys."
Yeah, this whole policy that you cannot, because it's only a policy. There's nothing in the law that says this, but there's a Justice Department policy that says you can't charge a sitting president. This procedure, what Trump is asking for, would expand that to say you cannot charge a candidate or sitting president. It's an absurd position.
And he also, I know, Bill, the other thing with the fact he says is that a lot of what I'm being accused of has not been actually dealt in court. The president's right to have things. He said those issues have to be debated. And in the end, the short thing politically is this. Okay, he wants to tell what he believes is his disciple when he wants the trial. Okay, he said, and if you go along with me, I'll guarantee whatever. She can, as a compromise to protect herself, if she lives in the MAGA world, say we'll do something in June. Okay, basically still forcing it past the election. So the question is, if something has to happen before June to show that Smith won, otherwise anything after that to me is Trump won.
I think it's going to be interesting because judges they're appointed, they're lifetime appointments, and short of really screwing up, doing something criminally, getting impeached, they're there for life. She doesn't have to worry. But if it's anything like the Eastern District of Michigan, where I think judges would tell a judge like her, you better get your shit together. You're embarrassing us. You better go by the law and not, because you're going to embarrass the whole federal judiciary. And I have a feeling that message has been given to her, whether she listens or not. She doesn't have to, but I feel like it's been conveyed to her.
Did somebody give that message to Alito or Thomas?
Yeah, I was going to say, when you got crazy Clarence up there who says "te absolvo," that might be a little bit more murky, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's listening to the witches.
So now Ed decides to bring Macbeth into the fray with the witches over there. Don't anybody think, if you're watching the show, that you're not going to learn enough to pass your AP English test. So we also have news that former first son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was called before the grand jury and seems to have testified a couple of months ago, honing in on this idea about whether Trump knew that he'd lost the election and, in fact, had acknowledged that he had lost the election. Are the walls closing in ever more tightly here?
Well, I look at it two ways. One, he's testified before, but it was never publicized. What I'm seeing from Jack Smith, and Bill, you understand that these secret letters are going out implying that you perjured yourself. So I'm thinking the fact is Kushner's coming in because they're coming to the end of the process. But number two, the fact is they're testing his perjury charges. They think he may did in his previous testimony.
Now, we have a video of Rona McDaniel, who dropped her name apparently when she was given the RNC. Now it's just Rona McDaniel. But she almost tries to set the table for Trump's criminal case, but also for the upcoming election.
When did you stop being an election denier?
I think saying there were problems with 2020 is very real. I don't think that's election denying. I mean, Chris, I'm from Wayne County. We had a woman send a note saying, I'm being told to backdate ballots. We had to look into that. That's deeply concerning. When you have friends who are poll watching and being kicked out, that's deeply concerning. We have every right to look at that. And I think everybody should have a little more concern about, listen, look at
wait a minute. Are you saying, as the chair of the Republican Party, that you still have questions as to whether or not Joe Biden was the duly elected president?
Joe Biden's the president.
No, I didn't ask you whether he's the president.
No, I don't think that. I think
Do
there
you
were
think
lots of problems.
he won the election?
I think there were lots of problems with 2020.
Do you think
ultimately he won the election?
Pardon?
But ultimately he won the election, but there were lots of problems with the 2020 election. 100%.
And that's fair.
But I don't think he won it fair. I don't. I'm not going to say that.
See, that's, that the Secretary of State posted after the election, pushing back, specifically posted something addressing her allegations back then and explaining everything. The Attorney General, Barr, explained there was nothing to Wayne County, the allegations there. Everybody has, and she is continuing because she loves her job that much. She doesn't believe what she's saying. She loves her job that much, and she knows she's got to answer to Trump. He's the guy,
Look, she wants to fly on Air Force One again, like everybody else does.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, look at this deception. I mean, she's factually correct, but she doesn't live in the hood. She's in Wayne County, but she's on the outer limits in Northville. I mean, that's barely Wayne County. I mean, it's pseudo Oakland County. But
they want to get their own county.
Well, bottom line, I have some Republican clients who are part of that Wayne County process, and they're totally different with what Romney is saying. Okay. Also, we have a reporter, Charlie McDuff, who was there in charge of some of the ballot process at the Cobo Hall, who said there was nothing there. Okay, so this is all about politics.
We didn't need Charlie to tell there was nothing there. These Republicans think that, there was all kind of, we know there's issues in Detroit with voting, but it's not between Republicans and Democrats. It's between all Democrats. It's nonpartisan. And Ed, there was at times when McNamara went to bed, thought he lost to Clyde Cleveland, and when he woke up, there was thousands of spoiled ballots by the city clerk. Same way with John O'Hara, thought he lost to Virgil Smith Sr., and when he woke up in the morning, we threw out all these ballots because they wasn't good. Yeah, well, we done had issues now.
Oh yeah, we had Bill Hill and Kwame Kilpatrick. We had the same thing. All of a sudden, there's a lot of money on the street, and somebody else won.
Adolph, to be fair, I'm glad that McNamara won. Otherwise, can you imagine having the Cleveland terminal at Detroit Metro Airport? I mean, that'd be just too confusing. Barb.
Yeah, we got Warren Evans. So what's the difference?
All right. I worked the election. I counted ballots in absentee ballots in Oakland County, and by 11 o'clock in the morning, it was completely clear that Donald Trump had won. It was, and there were cops outside. It's so regulated to count ballots. It's such a regulated thing. It's really hard to do. But we also, Allan and I both have good friends that were at Cobo Hall County. One of them sat with that woman.
Christine.
No, not Christine. Perone.
The blonde-haired woman.
And she never exactly. And she never made a peep all day. He said. It wasn't until afterwards when she smelled the TV cameras that she came out. I mean, it was just stories I heard afterwards. I got done counting. I think I went home at like 11:30 at night or something like that. And you can't have a radio, you can't have a newspaper, you can't have your phones or a computer or anything. So I get in the car and I turn it on, and they're like, people have gone insane at Cobo Hall in Detroit. It's like, this was the easiest election. It was just so clear. And these people are, and we talked about it last week. Is it cynicism, or are they just nuts? Or is it both?
It's called.
Well, that's a good point. But I've got a question for Ed. I can't help but wonder who this the continued noise about all of this, because it sounds ridiculous to keep going on this, if this is helping Trump with the nomination. I mean, to just this continued din of noise about all of this seems to me is exactly what Trump's looking for.
I would have to agree with that. And as a pollster, in both 16 and in 20, I had predicted the election by 7:30 through my polling before there's any ballot stuff. I already knew who won. So how did my polling get so wrong? Did they, when I called all these thousands of people, all of a sudden they boxed themselves in? It didn't happen. But what you are correct. This is all about Trump getting through the primary season. Okay, the more this happens, fewer Republicans show up at the caucuses. For example, why did all the top, we'll talk about this later, why did all the Republicans endorse Trump in Michigan, in Congress? Why? Because of the fact that the only body who's going to show up at these caucuses and make their nominee is going to be Trump Republicans. They can't get endorsements or raise money if they don't do it. And also right now, there's been some studies that says 38% of all Republicans still believe that Trump won, no matter if they've shown the facts. It doesn't make any difference.
Right.
Let's talk about that then, Ed.
Kill John James.
Pardon?
Don't just kill John James out of Macomb County.
Well, yes, it's going to end up hurting John James. If, remember this, if the Democrats decide to give whoever gets the nominee money, last year they decided not to give the Democrat any money in Macomb County.
And they should have.
Yeah.
And John James barely won, with Carl Malinga getting almost nothing. I mean, he was John James was bombarding the airwaves with commercials, and he won by a sliver.
Well, actually,
John James outspent Carl Malinga 5-1 in that election.
Well, actually, yeah, but bottom line, remember, Carl Malinga only raised real money, $300,000 until about the end of August.
So let's talk about that. I mean, every single member of the Michigan congressional delegation has already endorsed Donald Trump before a single debate, which apparently Trump said he's not going to go ahead and participate in at least the first two, before any primaries. They really seem to want to get ahead of the curve on this one. You've mentioned, Ed, that part of this has to do with fundraising. Part of it is acknowledging a base. On a somewhat disreputable AM radio station yesterday, Tim Walberg, the senior member of the Republican delegation from Michigan, was on there talking about how this is the time for the Republicans to form a base around a candidate. I thought that there already was a base, but the fact that they've put their thumbs on the scale seems to for some to be a little bit premature. Do they know something that we don't?
Well, here's what's going on. In John James' race, all the people that are running the party in that district are all MAGA Republicans, okay? Part of St. Clair County, you have to get permission from the county party to how you're going to vote in Lansing, okay? So the bottom line is all these people, we got to remember, the Republicans right now, unless something changes, they're going to have caucuses in February, March. They're not going to have elections until their own elections with the Democrats. So these congressmen have to have grassroots people to work with them. So if they say anything other than Trump, they have no volunteers in the state.
It's great. It's so crazy. I mean, it's that the power, the influence that Trump still has in this state after we've seen 2018, 2020, 2022, where the Republicans have failed miserably because of Trump, and they're still turning to him because they know it's in the primary they've got to. He'll destroy them.
Well, you look at this, you had the Conkling County Republican Party chair when Trump gave that speech back on the 25th of June saying, we endorse Donald Trump. You know, I mean, he was sort of joking, but the bottom line, he said that when they came in. Why did they do that? Because Trump raised like $600,000 that thing. Most of that will go to the party.
Or they'd kick him in the balls if he did anything else. So, you know,
yeah,
that's their having fights.
Look, I mean, I hate to say this. I feel like I'm 19 years old again and marching in Washington, D.C. But I mean, is this anything short of an assault on democracy?
Well, it is.
You get rid of the primaries, you hold the caucus. You know, the powers that be make the decision. Clearly a third. I mean, look, and I don't want to give Trump any more credit than he's entitled to. I think it's less about Trump than it is the MAGA movement. I think that these, the racists, the bigots, the January 6th people, they don't believe in democracy. They want to put their person in there to control all these gay, black, Arabs, Muslims,
women.
Women.
But Bill, the Democrats undone this shit too. When George Wallace hijacked the Democratic Party in Michigan in 1972, they changed the rules. When we look at John Dingell and Granholm, when they was for Hillary, they kept Barack Obama off the ballot. So they play these games. All the games is being played by those that are in power. And the Republicans, I have to give them credit. They good at their agenda. When they say they're going to fuck up America, they fuck up America.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's talk about a couple of, and I use the term in quotation marks because this is how they're being branded by some out there in the Twitter sphere. Spoilers for the Democrats. Cornell West.
Cornell Wells can cause problems. And why is this? Because he is just adopted and was given Jill Stein's whole operation nationwide. She's joining the team. And in close races, remember, we're elected our president in electoral college, okay? Not by all popular vote. So Cornell Wells is a real issue in some key states, like Nader was. Okay, we can go down the list of who are potential spoilers. Cornel West has an opportunity to disrupt and cause some problems.
But Cornel West is so left, he's turning right. Because he got some of these right-wing people agreeing with him. And some of the stuff I like what he talk about. But, in Michigan, I don't think he's going to be a power player. Maybe someplace else.
But it makes it close. It makes it harder. He may not impact the top of the ticket, but the lower races below underneath because he's running with the Green Party here. Okay.
Jill Stein is his campaign manager.
That's what I said. Jill Stein is turning over her whole operation. That's where the problem lies. Maybe lower down the ticket that could hurt the U.S. Senate race. Biden may win in Michigan, but lose the U.S. Senate race. That's why he's a player.
He's a charming guy. He's a very charming guy. And when he talks,
a lot of people like him. He's even been in movies.
Even he talks and he refers to white people as he goes, my vanilla brothers, and he's very engaging, embracing, and who knows?
Hey, Alan, I think he referred to Macron as his French vanilla brother. But anyway, what about I know that was terrible. Well, he was also in Matrix 2 and 3.
Yes, he was.
What about Hill Harper running now for the Senate against Slotkin?
Well, let me tell you what's going on here, okay? Hill Harper really has a short window to achieve any real success, okay? He's depending on his own money. He's got a lot of good issues. I've seen all his videos, all that kind of stuff. His difficulty is this. Right now, around the country, somebody that you all know, Mike Rogers, is trying to raise enough money to run for the Republican U.S. Senate side. From the funders on both Democrat Republicans on both sides of the aisle across the country, if Mike Rogers gets in, the money is cut off. The only two people going to get money is Mike Rogers and Lisa Slotkin. So Hill Harper has to do it now. If Mike Rogers gets in, it is over with.
Well, Hill Harper's running for mayor of Detroit. I'm sorry. He done got into this race. He knows he doesn't have a chance. And, he want to get his name out there. But the folks that's around him, that's advising him, are saying, okay, we're not going to win this. But there's a bigger fish to go after. Because Duggan is running for governor, and all these scenarios is here it is, and I see him as being a player running for mayor.
So that's why Garland Gilchrist sold his condo in Detroit because he's not going to run for mayor now because.
Well, but you know what? And I know that being a lieutenant governor is like being the vice president, unless but the lieutenant governor, listen, it's nowhere to nowhere.
Well, I agree with you. You look at Posthumus, you look at John Cherry, you look at all the candidates, even Snyder's people. I agree with you on that.
You look at T. John Lewinsky.
Yes.
None of them is ever going to win. Milliken is the only lieutenant governor that became governor and stayed.
But Hill Harper has done one thing that I've seen. Yes, it's very difficult for him, but at least he's got a crew going around the state. He's picked up, some working Hispanic groups and Black groups. He's been doing
leverage.
it.
It's all about leverage.
It's all about leverage.
What's his background? What's his background?
Well,
Harvard Law.
Actor.
Yeah,
He's an actor.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, he's smart. He's a smart guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he understands the lay of the land. And when people say, "Oh, he just moved here," shit, everybody. Hillary Clinton moved to New York. Robert Kennedy. All these people moved to these places, and he's no different than anybody else. Listen. The guy is intelligent, smart. He understands the issues. But at this point, Slotkin is the
way to be.
The way to be is like I think I was one in a previous interview with you guys. I backed earlier this year. The Jewish committee was going to back Jocelyn Benson. Benson was told in National People's Statue that she's too liberal, and all the money got behind Slotkin. That was it.
And some of the folks from the Black Caucus is calling Hill Harper, asking him to get out. So if he's smart, he's saying, "Okay, if I get out, what are you going to do for me?"
And what are you going to give me?
That's the name of the game.
Well, he's going to have to get out anyways. Right now he's spending his own money, so he's only got $15 million. If more than he spends of his own money, it'll be hard to run for anything else.
The good doctor not giving him any money.
Well, I think the Detroit mayor's race will heat up if Shree announces his true intentions, right, Adolph?
Well, but you make fun of that, but that's a reality. There's no question. He's looking at that. I have to give a guy credit. Oh man, I could smack him in the face.
Well, look at this. He's become the most Black and most Jewish congressperson that I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, he's full of shit.
That makes him the Sammy Davis Jr. of Congress, Ed.
That's right.
Well, we need to poke one eye out then.
Okay.
Oh man. So
be sure it's the right class.
So talking about elections, the one person that we haven't mentioned, of course, is our incumbent president, Joe Biden. The inflation rate has now dropped for the 12th straight month. It looks like the economy is not only stabilizing, thwarting off recession, but it also seems to be improving. Although the price of gas is up another 20 cents today. But does anybody care? Or are they more worried about the number of times that Biden trips climbing up to Air Force One and what it seems like to be a fair amount of ageism even coming from more liberal media outlets?
Well, I think that's the reason why you saw Biden's NATO speeches and Finland speeches were so critical, because bottom line, if you listen to his speeches, he looked like he was 30 years younger in his responses. Okay? They know that. The difficulty is this. The United States, America voters, they know that things are better, but they're still afraid. They're not still feeling the security yet, okay? And they're so this is limp. And because bottom line, there's only a couple years between Trump and Biden. So this all comes down to fear. Until they personally feel guaranteed that they're going to have a future past 2024. See, part of what Trump's doing is actually causing this sort of negative feeling about Biden. Are we going to be able to go on the next 4 years? Biden just has to be more public.
So do you think that was a sandbag? Damn it! It was a sandbag.
Well, even Trump told him don't pick on the president because he did it himself.
Okay. Well, he's his. He can be the only one who does it. What about the idea, as a hypothetical, if Biden were to ask Kamala Harris to leave the ticket and get somebody who would be regarded as more palpable, more likable?
I think there's definitely strong. I mean, she's not one of the stronger vice presidents, although the majority of vice presidents haven't been that strong. But I think he looks too disloyal if he dumps her.
He stopped with
it. The bottom line is that he would lose immediately. He would lose the base.
12 noon.
I think that there's a bigger issue. I mean, if he was going to do that, whoever that person would be would be a candidate to run for president. I mean, you know, I think that some circles in the Democratic Party would suggest that if we had a strong candidate who could take Joe's spot, we might put him in. Joe might step down.
Correct.
There, I mean,
well,
there
this
just isn't a consensus candidate. There is no Barack Obama out there right now that could step in, who has the charisma, who has what it would take to become president to replace Joe Biden.
Or it would look like the Democrats know that Joe Biden can't finish another term and have somebody pull out, you know.
Yeah, there's a million bad reasons.
You can't do it. It's going to make
it would implode, because right now, once it's all set in stone, it's over with. The age thing is gone. Okay, I mean, I've run so many races where my candidate was in the 80s and all that kind of stuff. They still won. Okay, and that, you know, that's the way it works. Now,
well, you know, Roosevelt got rid of 2 vice presidents, and you know, and people knew he was sick and he was dying, and you know, Truman, who people didn't know and didn't like and didn't care, became the president. He get rid of Harris. He's forced to come up with another black woman, or he's gonna lose. A lot of black voters gonna sit it out.
Well, there's already enough black voters on the binge anyways. He can't afford to lose any more.
No.
Well, I mean, I think that the ideal scenario is that Kamala Harris should be offered the main seat at The View. That would move over and open up a slot for somebody to come in. No one would be conspiratorial that this has anything to do with age. It has to do with ratings and a much, much better package.
Well, Biden should have listened to his wife, who didn't like Harris, and pick somebody else.
So should John McCain.
Well, here's what can happen. All Barack Obama has to do is get AI to make all the features of Kamala Harris be Barack Obama's wife, and then she can run as Kamala Harris under Obama's parents.
That would be the ultimate deep fake, Ed. So I'm not sure about this. So we also have, you mentioned the NATO Summit, and you mentioned Joe Biden there. It looks like Sweden now is next in line to become a member state.
Within the next 90 days.
It looks like the Ukraine is not so much, despite the fact of Zelensky's lobbying for it. Was this a win for Biden in Vilnius? And I know you said that it probably won't move the needle on the American elections, but as far as American foreign policy goes, how do you see this thing shaping up, particularly with Russia?
Well, actually, it creates some importance, the fact that Biden is perceived as a leader. He's competent and he can do the job. So that's positive. They can't attack him on that. Number two, we have to understand that Turkey was guaranteed something like 16 F-16s after a given amount of time for supporting Sweden. We also found out why Zelensky got off the mark about talking about he was so upset with the original decision, because there was some wording problems and when he announced about his becoming in NATO. Because if this was the translation problem, because the fact they implied a date when they didn't actually mean a date. They didn't put in the words after the war is over. But you saw what happened when Biden fucked them off side to side. Look, we're there. We're going to give you money. We're giving you support. Right now, France is giving them long-range missiles. The problem was Zelensky did not read the right translation on the original order when he was going to come into NATO.
Yeah, look, the problem for me with all of this, first of all, I think Biden looked really good at that conference. I think that he did have a win with convincing Turkey to support Sweden. But as to Ukraine, which is my bigger issue, it would make no sense to bring a country that's already at war with Russia
and
into
Section
NATO.
5, which means we're also in war.
We're immediately at war with them. But the idea of setting the timing for when the war ends gives Putin nothing but motivation to continue the war, even if he wanted to get out he'd want to make sure there was a skirmish at the borders constantly to make sure that Ukraine didn't go into NATO. I mean, I think that this most recent NATO meeting demonstrated that Putin's strategy here of invading Ukraine has been a total disaster, because his goal was to make sure that he didn't have NATO nations on his border. He just screwed all that up. So for all those reasons, I think it was a win for Biden, but I cannot figure out why people were even having a discussion about timing, because it just gives Putin all the motivation in the world to keep the war going.
Well, I mean, you also have this idea about how Poland wants nuclear weapons deployed there, which I think would probably be seen as too much of an act of provocation. And it all comes down to Article 5 of the NATO Charter, that an attack on one member state is seen as an attack on all, which I think that the United States and other NATO member states would say that even if then Russia were to go ahead and attack Poland, they would say that Poland was the aggressor by having the weapons there, which would be the opt-out for not the invocation of Article 5. So it looks like things are getting pretty messy, but the idea then of surrounding Russia, as you said, which was something that NATO had said all along we weren't going to do, and now actually operationalizing that doesn't really bode well. But I think
we got the NATO Sea. It's no longer the Baltic Sea; it's the NATO Sea.
It's the NATO Sea, and it was bad enough that war games brought us so close to the nuclear brink. No need for this to go ahead and do so. Well, sparks were flying at the House Judiciary Committee this week when GOP members particularly decided to grill Trump appointee, FBI Director Christopher Wray. I think, Alan, you might have a clip of some of that engagement.
Actually, I have two of them.
Pending case, but I will say that there are specific rules about where to store classified information, and that those need to be stored in a SCIF, a secure compartmentalized information facility. And in my experience, ballrooms, bathrooms, and bedrooms are not SCIFs.
Insisting in the wake of Hunter Biden's plea deal on tax charges that the Bureau is not protecting the Biden family.
Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI does not and has no interest in
you won't answer the question about whether or not that.
And disavowing some of the behavior outlined in Special Counsel John Durham's probe, which documented missteps by the FBI in its investigation into the 2016 Trump campaign's ties with Russia.
I consider the conduct that was described in the Durham report as totally unacceptable and unrepresentative of what I see from the FBI every day, and must never be allowed to happen again.
Wray, however, stood by the search at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate.
I would not call it a raid. I would call it the execution of a lawful search warrant.
Oh, we just have one quickie here.
I think it's quite rich that the guy that has accused you of lawlessness and weaponization is 400 days into violation of his own congressional subpoena over January 6th. Quite rich to me that you're hearing all of these allegations from somebody who won't even respond to a lawful subpoena.
That, of course, he meant House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, he of the Ohio State wrestling scandal, among other things. Never met a jacket that he liked. But here's my question regarding the FBI. The FBI hasn't exactly had clean hands throughout its time. After all, back in the days when it was run by a perfect size 24 J. Edgar Hoover, the fact that surveilling people like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, I'm sure we all have files that are more than just simply a half an inch thick.
I hope so.
Otherwise, you haven't been doing your job, Barb.
I've been trying.
All I know is I think you've got a page for every concert you attended. So that would be a 5-volume set right there. But
my legacy.
But the idea that, I mean, the FBI does have this legacy of being problematic, notwithstanding the GOP's grandstanding on this issue. What do we do about an institution like the FBI that has these issues?
You know what? I think some of these hearings, if done properly are totally proper. I mean, as you say, it's an agency. I mean, look, they do a lot of great stuff, but they also violate, they violate the law and they violate people's personal liberties at times. And that's should be the intent of these hearings. But these hearings are such grandstanding, and there's so much piles of bullshit laid on by the GOP, particularly Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz and stuff like that. Actually, I watched a lot of it. Matt Gaetz actually had some legitimate questions, but he does it with such grandstanding. And Jim Jordan is just just acts like a total ass during the thing. But I think these hearings,
not an act, Alan. It is not an act.
Yeah. Yes. But I think it's perfectly fine to be monitoring these things. The IG, the Inspector Generals should be, aggressively monitoring stuff like that. But look, like any agency, there's no institution, there's no company that doesn't have some bad apples.
Bad apples, but we go back to the 60s, the 50s. We go back when the FBI was created, and they first target was Marcus Garvey. The bottom line is the FBI has been a rogue organization for a long fucking time. And this tells us how bad things are with these Republicans when they can make Dick Cheney, the FBI, the George Bushes, and them look like human beings. Because
it's such an upside down world, man. To support the FBI is just incredible. To have any support of them is incredible, and that's just how totally fucked up everything is right now.
Well, the key thing is they understand that behind the scenes, if you talk to your congressman, they'll find that once those 4 or 5 Republicans are not doing a spot for Fox News or Newsmax, there are real conversations going on, working with the FBI. The trouble is, now since we have public things, they're all about cutting TV ads for their campaigns, raising money, and Fox News. They're still behind the scenes.
Well, but I have to point out one real irony for me, and that is, these are the folks that when defund the police came in as a motto, screamed and yelled and lawlessness. Now they want to defund the FBI.
Right.
So that's it for me. The ultimate irony. Look, there's never been a law enforcement institution, or really an investigative institution. The CIA, the FBI, the state police, local police. They all have problems. Part of it is what they do, and part of it is who wants to be part of the organization. There's a website you might look at, Tickle the Wire, that focuses on this stuff.
Well, very quickly, you can do this.
But
all Biden has to do is take Hunter Biden, be like Abraham, put him on an altar and sacrifice him, and this will all go away.
No, it won't.
No. Oh, no, it won't. Yeah.
No,
Ed, your view of the Republican Party and the MAGA group in the Republican Party is much more optimistic than it deserves to be.
But he's consistent, Bill. I mean, at least he's being biblical.
Look, I'll say this. I think for the most part, Christopher Wray is a pretty honorable guy. But that being said, he's a politician as well. You don't get to those positions. James Comey didn't get to that position. None of these people get to positions in Washington like that without having some political bent there. But I think all in all, I mean, I've known a lot of FBI agents over the years through covering, and I know there's a lot of honorable people, but I know there was also some that I wouldn't trust, and we shouldn't give them free rein. They should be monitored very closely to make sure they have such powers, but yet, look, they do some good stuff. They unearth public corruption. They deal with terrorism. They deal with violent crime. It's not like they're evil.
Lately, we need to put an asterisk by them, because in the 60s and the 50s, those assholes, they was worse than the Ku Klux Klan. So
they were a branch of the Ku Klux Klan.
There's no question. J. Edgar Hoover had one black FBI agent, and when he was director, and that was his chauffeur. That drove him around.
Alan, the FBI also apprehended Buffalo Bill. Remember, Agent Clarice was great. But I remember one time the FBI, some of the local agents would contact me, and they'd want to know a little bit more about what was happening in the Middle East. And so I remember having coffee with one of the agents, and I said, "Okay, you got to tell me what's the biggest issue you find here in the Metro Detroit area, because I don't think it's terrorism." He said 80% of the calls that we respond to have to do with people in the Arab American community who are trying to screw each other over by claiming that so-and-so is a terrorist. Why? Because of a business deal gone bad, because of infidelity. So I was like, wow, that's a lot of infidelity to have to deal with regarding that. So Detroit apparently has made a poll of being the second most stressed U.S. city. Anybody agree with that? I don't find things that stressful here.
I don't know how they make a determination like that, really. I mean, all these polls, this city is the nicest place to live. This city, they pull together all these different little factors. They calculate, they come up with points, and they say Detroit. But I live in Detroit. Adolph lives in Detroit. I don't think we're more stressed than the suburbanites or anyone
and with
else.
all the cannabis dispensaries, I mean, I think we've got to be a little bit less stressful, maybe a bit more paranoid.
Well, think about this: we had up to 134 cannabis shops within 20 miles of downtown Detroit.
Wow, that's more than actual supermarkets, but which tells you a lot. So another thing, though,
let me say if I could. Yeah. I looked at these factors that they considered. Yeah. And if you look at the factors, the elements that they consider, we can be grateful we're not Cleveland, which was number one. But those factors make sense on why Detroit got its rating.
Crime.
The problem is that if you can, the increase in housing, especially with the gentrification of Detroit, the housing that we want, the problem with homelessness, all these issues make some sense. I was actually more astounded by the least stressful cities in America, because I think when I looked at that list, I'd fall asleep when I walked into them. I wouldn't be under stress.
What was top of the list on that one, Bill?
They're mainly small towns in North Carolina and
they don't watch this computer program.
Right. I mean, it's just
North Carolina. Where you go to Mayberry?
Yeah, I think the degree that's my point, man.
Listen, one of my grandfathers watched Mayberry, and he was from South Carolina. He said, "How many towns down south that you don't see black people?" He made me realize. He said Mayberry wasn't realistic.
No. The degree of difficulty for living in the city, I think, is one of the biggest problems. Is the bus system, the
police department.
I think anytime you. But I think when you live in a city and you live in a big city, it's going to be more stressful than the suburbs. I mean, when I go to the supermarket, I mean, there's sometimes people in the parking lot approaching you. There's people sitting in front of the drugstore. I mean, there's a bigger mix of people in the city. It's more.
But they out there in Birmingham and Troy and Madison Heights too. They bag all over the place. But in the city, you get firsthand accounts of all this, and you can't go to a gas station at night at a certain time, even in a police uniform, because there's somebody there that want to do harm. Until they start cracking down on some of these places that encourage folks to stand by the pumps and sell whatever they selling, we're gonna have that.
I have a limited number of gas stations in the city that I will go to, and at night, I mean, I usually get my gas in the suburbs. There are a couple near me that I'll go to, but it's I'll go down Woodward or Highland Park at late at night, and there's gasoline for like 50 cents cheaper than in the suburb. But I'm like, it's not worth it.
But I go at times. It depends. You
go at night.
You got to be aware of where you at. It's all part of living in the city. And people come here thinking they can come to Detroit, leave their cars unlocked, and leave valuables in the back seat, and then they get upset when somebody just open the car door and take their shit, or they break into their condo and all this other stuff. Listen, since I've been here since the 80s, I've had 3 cars stolen, 2 broken into. It's all part of it, and we pay the highest insurance rate in the state.
Yep.
All I know is, Adolph, if you want to check your stress level, meet me on a Saturday afternoon at Lululemon at Somerset and try to make an exchange.
Well, listen. Well, you need to take my wife there because she knows the game.
You're gonna be freebasing your blood pressure medication there, my friend.
By the way, Saeed, South Burlington, Vermont is the least stressed city in the United States.
Wait a minute.
Well, they're all washed out now. They're all flooded.
They don't exist. Listen, stress. There's nothing there.
Yeah, it's all water now.
They've got Ben and Jerry's factory there, and weed is legal. So do the math.
You got Bernie Sanders there.
So something that might actually improve our viewership even more is the fact that Hollywood is on strike. The Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA have both gone on strike, which seems to be jeopardizing the fall lineup, among other things, including the primetime Emmys. It seems like some of the demands, of course, are for better wages, but also some reassurances that AI is not going to make redundant both writers and actors. We saw without blowing the plot, in the latest Indiana Jones movie, the use of CGI and AI to make Harrison Ford look younger than he was even in American Graffiti. So the danger is quite real. Barb, what do you think about the strikes going on there, and is there some daylight?
I tell you, I think it's going to be a union summer. Not only the Writers Guild, the Screen Actors Guild, the UAW, the Teamsters. There's a strike right now at U of M. There are graduate students that's been going on for a while, and then there's Starbucks popping up all over the place. And I think it's just going to become more and more. Fran Drescher last night, when she announced the vote, one of the things that the studios asked for is for every member of the Screen Actors Guild to come and be scanned from the front and the sides and the back, so they could be more easily turned into a CGI and never get paid. They get a day's pay for that, but then they never get paid again for the rest of their lives. The studios will own those images in perpetuity. And I think that, and I think the fact that it's not just wages, it's the streaming money. That is the issue, is that none of that that was all bargained in the early 90s before there was a lot of, there was HBO, I think, and that was kind of it. And now everything is being streamed and they're not making a dime on it. In the meantime, these studios are making billions and billions. They say, oh, these movies didn't make any money. I saw John Cusack on Twitter say that Say Anything, which is a movie that is constantly quoted. Everybody is photographed holding a boombox or something over their head. And they're claiming that movie has consistently lost money forever. It's on every day.
Well, now it's the 21st century, Barbara. I hold up my AirPods in the air.
Yeah, when I buy TV ads for people right now, traditional TV is down to only 40% of the market. All the rest is going to streaming.
Yes,
and that's the difference. When you lose, you're only down to 40%. And then the other thing, they only commit to 10 shows per year, which another Fran Drescher is concerned. But streaming services is the very big thing. The other concern we have on union strikes, you got DMC maybe going on strike. The physicians.
Good. I mean, good. As
Some
far as I'm concerned,
patients think DMC is already on strike, Ed.
I thought he made a new rap music.
So Fran Drescher, for anybody out there, is the president of the Screen Actors Guild, just to remind people. Bill.
And she barely made it too.
DMC. I mean, a lot of the hospitals are shameful, but the DMC is really shameful. I mean, it's a for-profit. They're, if you talk some doctors, the doctors who are there won't even go there for health care.
Bill.
Yeah. I want to go back to what Barb said about streaming. I think streaming is a real problem for the actors and writers for a number of reasons. The general population, when actors used to go on strike, would go, what? When the writers went on strike a number of years ago, a long time ago, everybody wanted to watch late night. They wanted those writers to be back. Now they're just watching a different Netflix show or a different Amazon show. It's going to create some real problems for the strikers, which is problematic. The other thing is, we talked earlier, though I didn't get it. We approached it from a different thing, a different approach. When we talk about the lowering of inflation and controlling the economy, we do this in a very interesting way. We do it in a way that brings down the pressure on wages. Yep. Because we don't want wages to rise because we think that will fuel inflation. Here's the problem. Those people who are working 3 jobs to make ends meet are now going to lose one of their 3 jobs. And that's going to help the ultra rich who really don't have any of these concerns. And we're doing these things on the backs of common people. And I think that presents some very serious problems. Now, I'm glad that the actors are saying, wait a minute, why should the producers get all this money instead of us? But I'd like to look at that issue way downstream. I'd like people to consider what's going on with the baristas at Starbucks. I'd like them to consider that person standing behind the counter at McDonald's, who's barely, even when they get to $15 an hour, are barely able to put food on their own table, much less get health care.
Are you going to pay $7 for Big Mac?
Yes.
We already are. We already are.
But this is what they do. They give a person a raise, and then they raise $10 for a cup of.
But what do we do then, Adolph? I mean, what do we do?
I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing is that I think I'm actually heartened by everybody throwing this off and say, we went through COVID, we sacrificed, we're always sacrificing, it's always us. We're making too much money, which is terrifying. Retirees are hurting. Everybody is hurting. At what point, and it's someone like me, I've got a union pension. I'm one of the really lucky ones. And so I'll pay $7 with solidarity, and they are making it hard. But we have to do something. I think everything. I'm way on the left of that. I'm a general strike supporter.
So I have to tell you that from my perspective, we are still struggling with trickle-down economics. That's what this is all about. I'll tell you who's not missed a beat is the top half of 1%.
Yep.
Right.
The one thing that nobody talks about using to control inflation is profits. Is McDonald's really entitled to the level of profits that they're making off the back of the workers and off the back of the public?
So when you see people pay $250,000 to go down in the ocean to kill themselves, we have a problem in this country. Or $10 million to go for 20 minutes up in space. And
Adolph, you could not have brought a better example to the table. Right. You're right. They paid $250,000 to go down into the ocean, and I think it's tragedy that they died. But look at all the money we spent on trying to find them while we were ignoring immigrants who were going down in a ship that we knew about, that we could have saved, and we did nothing to help them. That is I'm not going to drop the F-bomb on this show because nobody else has yet.
I did.
But did you?
Yeah.
Don't fucking do that. I'm sorry.
If I fucking want to.
I said, don't fucking do that.
But
no, I think that
where's Tipper Gore when we need her?
I think that it points out to a fundamental problem that we have in this society about what our values are. Our values are about making money and not about helping people.
But
Well,
when,
I'm gonna drop the S word.
But when you go to places like Phoenix and Denver, they're the capital cities of those states, and you see 3,000, 4,000 homeless people camped out right down the street from their state capital, and these assholes go to work every day and just walk by them, walk over them, and don't care. It's unbelievable. That this is what we're dealing with, and so you saying they going on strike. I support them, but at the end of the day, they're gonna tell the average person out here, well, you know, a Starbucks coffee that you want is $12. It's $14 because we paying these people all this money to pour this coffee. So,
but that's the problem. We're blaming it on providing a living wage rather than blaming it on the people who are making astronomical profits.
Well, the best way to do this is being in business for 51 years. A lot of what's causing this problem is that when I can buy for $1 at wholesale or go to the manufacturer and make it, put my name on it, that same company will have another company charge $20. If we didn't spend so much money on advertising, if you go to like other countries where they don't have advertising on TV, the cost of products go down. And that's part of the problem. We have a lot of advertising paying for things.
Yeah. Barb.
Like medicine.
Yes.
Like everything, like every single thing. You know, yesterday was the 28th anniversary of the Detroit newspaper strike. Me and Allan on that. And
Fired up.
And we were very fired up. And I was out for 4 years. Allan never got his job back. He was fired for something stupid as far as
4 times.
4 times. That's
4 times.
I did everything I
Arrested
could. But anyway,
twice.
only twice. The whole point of it was to make more money, right? I mean, the whole point of the strike was they wanted union control to go away. They won the strike, but they lost a lot of it because we went back. Everybody went back with contracts. It was crummy. It took them this long, really, to get rid of all the copy editors. For instance, the New York Times just got rid of their sports department completely, farmed it out. My job went to, after 20 years, my job went to Iowa, where they paid somebody just like me $10 an hour as opposed to a good wage and a union pension and health insurance. Are the papers any better? Is anything any better?
Nope.
Nothing's any better. And there are good people unemployed all over the state, and they're going to Starbucks. I went to work at Sur La Table. Talk about the Somerset collection. I worked there for 3 years until I couldn't stand it anymore. But it's insane out there what qualified people are doing, and so what they call the unqualified, they're so fucked. There it is. It's not even funny how bad it is, and you can't afford to live in the city of Detroit. You can't afford to even live in the city of Detroit anymore. Acres and acres of empty houses. Yeah. It's so fucked up. It's incredible. So everybody go out on strike.
I just wanted to say real quickly, when we talk about, the homeless walking over, politicians going to the Capitol or whatever, the U.S. Capitol, if you go down East Capitol, just very short distance, there are shootings every night. I know somebody who's paralyzed, who lived right down the road. His brother was murdered. You don't have to, it's not like they're so insulated. I mean, you don't have to go very far in DC. These people are legislating laws or living comfortable lives, are just turning a blind eye to really what's happening in society.
I mean, the rule is never get a hotel in Northeast, right? I mean, that was just sort of the one thing you told anybody. Well, Allan, I think we're at that time of the show where we're going to an ad first.
Okay, we're going to go to Ed. Well, let's do this real quick non sequitur. This will take 8 seconds.
My guest today is Santa Claus with an eating disorder. Did you just wake up from a 15-year nap?
Okay. Anyway, all right, let's do a little.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org, call 313-388-9799, or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
All righty, and here we go.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
All right.
I
who wants to go first with their schmuck?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Ed.
I would say the schmuck of the, because I didn't realize this, that since 1960, we've been missing one thing, according to Elon Cranston, colored people.
Why you take my shit, Ed?
Yeah.
Well, and who is he, Ed?
He's a congressman from Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah. He actually said that in Congress.
Yeah.
He said black people and colored
people.
Colored people. And then he later said, I meant people of color.
Yeah.
So this is like in Blues Brothers when she says, yeah, we have both kinds of music here, country and Western. Yes, that is definitely a schmuck. Okay, Adolph, I'm going to come back to you because you're going to have a backup, I'm sure. Barb.
Nolan Finley is Nolan is consistently a giant blowhard asshole, right? I worked in the papers for years, and at least twice a month when I worked there, Rick Snyder would come to visit. And I worked in the same floor as Nolan, and you can count on Nolan to do things like say Rick Snyder should be in charge of the the Michigan Republicans. Climate change fearmongers are bad, and he says it on a week where the East Coast is underwater, the South is on fire. We're just lucky we live where we do. I mean, Nolan can be counted on saying the stupidest, worst thing at the most inappropriate time. And so I'm going with Nolan this week and most weeks.
Okay, very good. Bill.
I don't actually have a name because I can't find it. This occurred, by the way, a year ago in July of 2020. A LA deputy sheriff punched a woman in the face who was holding an infant in her arms because she wouldn't turn her infant over so she could be arrested. It is amazing to me they protected this jerk for a year, but now that the videos have become released, even the LA sheriff says, "Oh, that looks inappropriate to me." Really? But that officer, whatever his name is my schmuck of the week.
Yeah, I don't think they've released the name of the officer as they usually do.
No, they haven't. I've looked at, and they want to be fair. They want to protect his rights.
Yeah.
Oh, how about the mom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or luckily the kid is okay too. Adolph.
Well, Ed took my color.
You got to have somebody else because I can't believe you only have a grievance with one person this week.
A Republican Party who says the military, they don't want diversity in the military, etc. I was in the Marine Corps. Those same schmucks, if they had their way, the Marine Corps wouldn't accept black recruits in the 40s. The Army would still be segregated. The Navy allowed blacks in there, but you only could be a cook. So that's their version of too much diversity, because we got black admirals, we got women generals, etc. So fuck them. Fuck all them and Crane listen, if abortions was retroactive, we wouldn't have half of Congress.
But you got to remember this, Adolph. The Supreme Court said you're allowed to have affirmative action in the military, so blacks have opportunity to get killed more often than whites.
Yeah.
Well, they also have legacy enrollment in the armed forces. So, Allan, who's your schmuck?
Mine is Rona Romney. Let's not forget Romney McDaniel, who actually gave up her name to one of the conditions, I think, for taking the RNC chair was to give up her name. But she is continuing. She's been told, she's been shown evidence that there was no voter fraud. No election is 1,000% without any flaws in it. But she is still pushing this bullshit because she has to answer to Donald Trump. And for some reason, she loves that job so much. I don't know why you would love, reigning over a party that is off the rails. And she has just, it's shameful, and she knows better. And people I know who she has said privately, early on in the election that she didn't believe there was voter fraud, or certainly not enough to make a difference. And, it's just bullshit. It's scary. I don't understand why she loves that job so much, but she must have. I mean, I could see her like whatchamacallit in Arkansas, at some point, her running for governor here in Michigan. I guess that's probably her goal.
Might be the expense account, Allan. I mean, that could be worth it. So my schmuck of the week is broadly obnoxious airline passengers, including the two women on a flight from Philadelphia to Las Vegas who decided to get into a good old-fashioned catfight, causing the plane to have to land in Denver. But the pièce de résistance was the passenger on a United Airlines flight from Houston to Amsterdam, who threw a hissy fit when flying in business class, the meal that he wanted wasn't available. He created such a havoc that they had to actually land the plane in Chicago, delaying everybody on board while they booted him, and hopefully put his meal back on the plane so he couldn't eat it because he was being detained. But wow. Talk about a sense of self-entitlement.
And then afterwards, they removed his pacifier while they were taking him off.
I mean, sometimes I'm flying coach and they're out of the main option for me. I'll just go ahead and have 2 extra rolls and be done with it. But then, my kind basically have to be quite willing and compliant and sit where we are. Otherwise, they bring those, plastic little things going on. Yeah, circa 2001 beyond. So yeah, for being obnoxious to passengers, you're my schmucks of the week. Well,
that's Jackie. Can I do it?
Yeah.
Jackie Mason used to do a whole routine about the airlines. He goes, a Gentile. He goes, they knows what plane. I flew a DC-10, and then I got a 747. Then I got a 727. He goes, a Jew just says, they gave me some extra rolls. Anyway,
my favorite Jackie Mason one was the one where he says, I went up to a Jewish girl and says, you look like a hooker. She's like, oh my God, how dare you say I look like a hooker? He says, I went over to an Italian girl. I said, oh my, you dress like a hooker. She's like, no kidding, I look like a hooker.
You think so?
So there's our Jackie Mason impersonations for the day. I don't think we're quitting our day jobs as a result of it. Anyways. Thank you for staying a little bit overtime for another robust discussion. Thank you, Ed Sarpolus. Yes. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Adolph Mongo. Thank you, Barb Ingalls and Allan Lengel. With all the last word?
Drive home.